Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the full council meeting of the 19th of the 7th of February. If the fire exit sounds, please use the nearest exit. I will remind you that this meeting is being webcasted. Filming and photography and recording of the meeting is permitted, providing it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If there is anyone present who does not wish to be filmed or photographed, and you've not already informed us, please would you raise your hand now? Nope, that's nobody. And I'll remind you, of course, your contributions will be timed throughout the meeting. So we move to agenda item 1, which is the apologies for absence. And I have apologies from absences for Councillors Crockett, Stone, Taylor and Dykes. We know that Councillor Crockett and Stone are not well at the moment, and so we're wishing them a very speedy recovery. Are there any other apologies? No. Item 2 then is declarations of interest. I'm asking for all members to declare declarations of interest. I'm going to declare a non-prejudicial interest in agenda items 8 and 9 as chair of the Rural Services Network and as vice chair of the NJC in agenda item 10. Are there any other? Yes, Councillor Hitchener.
Yeah, Chair, I have a non-registrable interest. My residence is close-ish to the Southern Relief Road. I have been given a dispensation to speak by the monitoring officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? No. Very well. We'll move on then to agenda item 3, which is the minutes of the last meeting on pages 11 to 26. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer, and if you're in agreement, I will sign these minutes of the 6th of December as a true and accurate record. Agreed? Agreed. I'll take that as read. We move on to agenda item 4 and 5, which is the Chairman and Chief Executive's announcement. The Chief Executive gives his apologies for today. The report is there before you from both himself and myself. There is nothing to add. We then move to agenda item 5, which is questions from members of the public. These have all been published, but we now move to potential supplementaries. Mr. Mead, is Mr. Mead present? And does he have a question? Don't think so. We were not indicated. Very well. Number 2 is Mr. McKay. Not present. Mrs. Furness, I understand, has a question to be read out.
Thank you, Chair. The supplementary question is, in answer to PQ6, the Cabinet member says that the original South-wide transport package had a full business case which demonstrates the viability of the transport scheme. This means that the active travel measures intended for the Belmont area in the SWTP are at the same stage of capital funding approval as the Southern Link Road, for which the Council is seeking to borrow 30 million. If this Council is serious about tackling congestion on the Belmont Road, promoting healthier lifestyles and cutting carbon emissions, will the Cabinet member confirm the funding and the amount that is in place in the capital strategy to build the safe walking and cycling infrastructure needed in the Belmont area, such as linking the Park and Choose site at Belmont to the city cycling network ahead of yet more road construction? Thank you.
Cabinet member.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Furness, for your supplementary question. You will be aware that there is an enormous amount of capital works to be delivered in this coming year for cycling, walking and active travel measures in and around South Wye. It's an enormous programme of work that has been worked on for a period of time. It's LUF funded, and you will see the work that will improve cycling, walking and anything for active travel measures in South Wye in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 4 from Mrs. Waleska, and we have a supplementary to be read out.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. The Section 151 officer has said in the report to the full Council budget meeting that in respect of pressures on the mainstream home to school transport and send transport services, a review has been commissioned to introduce a new operating model for transport services in 2025-26. The timely delivery of actions to deliver efficiencies in transport services is critical to manage cost pressures in future years. If there are such cost pressures on services vital to ensuring our young people across the whole county can safely access education and services, please confirm how much money, including staff costs, has been spent to date on the Western Bypass project and what future revenue budget is required to continue to progress this 400 million road scheme. Thank you.
Cabinet Member.
Yes, thank you for the question. I will have to write to you with an answer to this, because the costs for the Western Bypass project to date would of course have to include the abortive costs of the previous work done. So we will go back and we will come up with a proper answer for, I can't just magic it out of my head at the present moment. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Mrs. Lan, and we don't know whether she's here to give a supplementary. I don't think she is. Very well. Question 6 is Mrs. Prothero, and we have a supplementary to be read out.
Thank you. The former full business case referred to by the Cabinet Member in the answer was for the South Wye Transport Package, which included providing active travel measures and public transport improvements, including across the Belmont area and not a standalone road scheme. As the outline business case for the Southern Link Road says, in quotes, the full potential benefits of Phase 1 may not be realised should Phase 2 not progress, close quotes. The Golden Valley Railway Station is a priority of this council and is not dependent on a 350 million road scheme. Funding was allocated in June last year to develop an outline business case for the station. As the council are looking to allocate 27,000 new homes in sustainable locations across the county, would the Cabinet members say when the station scheme will be developed for consideration within the capital programme? Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Yes, again, thank you for the question. We have set money aside to look at this project as to whether or not it's viable. All of the partners that are involved in any rail project is not just this council, and at this moment in time they are reviewing the viability of the scheme. So I cannot give a date or a consideration as to when anything will come into the capital programme for the Golden Valley Parkway. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Morris's question. I don't know whether Mrs. Morris is here. I don't think she is, so there's no supplementary. We move on then to question 8, Mr. Morfitt. There is a supplementary in writing to be read.
Thank you. Thank you. There is an urgent need to reduce car dependency in our transport network designed for the city, and the substantial increase in local traffic expected from 10,000 new car-dependent houses on the west of Hereford will result in a daily gridlock. Safe cycling and walking networks are an essential component of modern city design, and funds are available to optimise design of sustainable transport systems. Active Travel England is the government's executive agency responsible for making walking, wheeling and cycling the preferred choice for everyone to get around in England. I understand that meetings with Active Travel are low priority and no minutes are taken. Why has the council failed to draw on available funds and utilise the extensive expertise of Active Travel England in its strategic long-term decision-making? Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Thank you for the question. I can assure you that our officers are engaged with Active Travel England and have been so to design the schemes that are currently being produced for this year. An enormous amount of money has been invested in walking, cycling and wheeling this coming year. And as such, whether or not it's going to be the preferred mode for the future generations to get around the city or not, we shall see. But I will follow up with a proper answer in writing for the question. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no supplementary at question 9. Mr. Milne, who is present, and you will have a supplementary on the SLR railway crossing. Mr. Milne.
Following concern expressed by Councillor Proctor, I'd asked why the Cabinet member resists addressing the existing road rail pinch points, which are chronic barriers to active travel in Hereford. but instead seeks to borrow millions to create another, the Southern Link Road, falsely claiming it has a business case when only the SWTP did, something the council had to admit in its closing statement at the public inquiry, nor design approval from Network Rail, which requires the overbridge from the 2016 planning to be raised by another half a metre, apparently. The response failed to answer the question, but instead pretends the SLR will reduce traffic and enhance active travel on the Home Lacey Road, both of which had been promised by the Rotherhurst Link Road. He misleads himself, but no one else. Is there anything he can say which might restore confidence in his administration's approach to transport infrastructure and its funding?
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Mr. Milne, for your question. That is a loaded question, and I will respond in writing to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have question 11 from Ms. Seekins, who is present and has a supplementary, and I will ask her to ask her question. Thank you.
The official answer.
Yes.
Thank you. In his response to my question, Councillor Price states that the information gathered in the 2019 Cycling and Walking Plan is now dated. In 2019, I know of many Herefordians who submitted intelligent, informed and lengthy contributions in the spirit of finally having the opportunity to constructively voice and be heard in the council plan of making the city a relatively safe place to cycle and to walk, which it is truly not today. In the light of this effort, and that the data will not be out of date because very few improvements have in fact been made in the cycling and walking infrastructure of the city, I ask again, when will he analyse that data, release his analysis to the public, and that he can give reassurances to us that it will be considered in the development of any new ongoing infrastructure walking and cycling project? If he does not, how can he expect that the intelligent, informed public will bother to apparently waste their time in taking part in any future consultation?
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Apparently, I said something in 2019 in regards to the future. I was not here for the following 4 years, and as a result of where we're at today, we are actually, as I've already said in answers to 2 questions, building a considerable amount of infrastructure for walking and cycling right across the city. But I will take heed of what you've said after this meeting, and I will give you a full written answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, with great respect, you had your question. Councillor, question 12 from Mr. Hardy, and we have a supplementary to be read out.
Thank you. As the Southern Link Road is already included in the capital budget, while the rest of the bypass is not, it has to be justified on its own merits as a standalone scheme in case the rest of the road is not built for whatever reason. The only justification for it seems to be that it would relieve congestion on the Belmont Road. The vast majority of the congestion on the Belmont Road at peak times is caused by school and commuter traffic. Why does the council not consider that a far cheaper and less environmentally damaging solution would be to expand the park and ride facility in the Belmont Abbey area with suitable incentives to get people out of their cars, and also provide a dedicated cycle track into the city and up to the colleges area, a lot of which already exists in fragments? Thank you.
Councillor Price.
Thank you for the question. There's a lot of stuff in your question that just needs to be correctly interpreted. If you were travelling into Hereford yesterday morning, you would have met a problem with a lorry that was broken down in the middle of one of our A roads, which caused hour-long traffic coming into it. It had nothing to do with schools or any other commuter traffic. It was just because of a problem. And that is why we have to look at the traffic in the round and move forward from there. So I will give you a proper written answer to your question, which the officers will have recorded. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. That completes questions from members of the public. We have no questions from members of council, of course, this being the Finance Council meeting. We now move on to agenda item 7. We now moved on to the finance motions. Can you sort that? Yeah. Can you? Well, if not, we've got officers that are capable of sorting that out. Let's move on then to agenda item 7, the council tax reduction scheme, pages 31 to 147 for 2025-26. I will call upon the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services to introduce and move the report. Councillor Stollard.
Thank you, Chair. My fellow councillors, the report before you today recommends that the council tax reduction scheme is maintained at the maximum level in financial year 2025-26. This means that eligible households will continue to receive the maximum level of discount for a further year. Council tax charges can be reduced if the bill payer meets certain set criteria contained in the council tax reduction scheme, which is available to working age and pensioner claimants. The pensioner CTR scheme is set nationally. However, the working age CTR is set locally by Herefordshire Council. Within Herefordshire, there are 11,335 bill payers who are currently in receipt of CTR, which comprises of 6,524 claims from working age applicants and 4,811 from pensioners. The existing local working age CTR scheme was approved by Council in February 2024 and is included in the document at Appendix 1, with the maximum discount maintained in 2024-25 to mirror those available to pensioner cases. This means that a 100% discount is awarded under CTR unless their income breaches the threshold, irrespective of the council tax band that the property falls into. This administration listens to members of the public, and during the public budget consultation, which took place during November and December of 2024, the results report clear support for continuing discount for council tax for those most in need, with support from the majority of respondents. Whilst no changes were proposed for 2025-26, the responses of the survey will support improvements and inform plans to increase participation in future rounds of consultation. Subsequently, we have brought forward this report to continue to provide this support to those individuals who require it. I would like to highlight, however, that in addition to the CTR scheme, the Council also provides other discounts, and these are listed on the Council's website, and this includes the hardship scheme for individuals who narrowly miss the criteria for the CTR scheme. Maintaining the maximum discount in 2025-26 will have a positive impact on the community by minimising the debt burden on residents who struggle to pay their council tax. I am therefore very pleased to endorse this report and propose that it is approved today by Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Second Leader of the Council.
Yes, thank you. I'll speak at the end, if I may, Chair.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to speak on this particular item? This, of course, is continuing the tax reduction scheme. I'm pretty sure that it will get the consensus of all members here. Nobody? Leader, did you want to speak?
If there's nobody else, then I would just concur with Councillor Stoddart. This is a very necessary scheme. It's been used to great effect in the past, and I think we should continue the scheme at the full setting of 100%. And so I wish to second and recommend everyone votes in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stoddart, you don't need to come back? No, indeed. Right. As with all these finance motions, we're going to do this by a named vote, as I indicated to you. We're going to begin with A on this occasion. There's a warning down there. There's a warning down there. So I'll ask the monitoring officer if you would indicate whether you're for, against, or abstain.
Councillor Andrews. Councillor Baker. Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Bartram. Councillor Biggs. Councillor Bolter. Councillor Bramer. Councillor Carwaldine. Councillor Cole. Councillor Cornthwaite. Councillor Claire Davis. Councillor Dave Davis. Councillor Durkin. Councillor Engel. Councillor Fagan. Councillor Foxton. Councillor Gandy. Councillor Gennard. Councillor Hamblin. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Heathfield. Councillor Highfield. Councillor Hitchner. Councillor Hercombe. Councillor James. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Lester. Councillor Mason. Councillor O'Driscoll. Councillor Oliver. Councillor Owens. Councillor Pebbody. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Dan Powell. Councillor Ivan Powell. Councillor Price. Councillor Proctor. Councillor Simmons. Councillor Spencer. Councillor Stark. Councillor Stoddart. Councillor Swinglehurst. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Tillett. Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Tully. Councillor Alan Williams. Councillor Rob Williams. Councillor Woodall.
Thank you. I think that's unanimous, and I think that will be of great relief to those residences indicated. We now move on then to agenda item 8, the 2025-26 Capital Investment Budget and Capital Strategy Update, pages 175 to 258. I would remind you all that you have all received a note from the Section 151 officers' Section 25 statement and the budget meetings procedure as laid out by the monitoring officer. I will invite the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services to introduce and move the report. Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to bring to Council today the final version of the 2025-26 Capital Investment Budget, together with the Capital Strategy for 2025-26 onwards. The capital programme reflects capital investment which generates benefit to the county for a period in excess of 1 year. I would like to remind you all that inclusion in the capital programme is not, and I emphasise not, approval to proceed, and that each project will be subject to its own governance. A full business case will be presented for approval where required and in full compliance with the Council's contract procedures rules as applicable. The capital programme for 2025-26 presents an ambitious programme of capital investment which is aligned to the Council plan across people, place, growth and transformation. The public consultation from November to December shows strong support from residents across the key areas of the proposed additions to the capital programme, namely continue to invest in improvements to the road network at 91%, invest in a prevention and maintenance programme to strengthen resilience and mitigate the impact for residents and communities, 87%, maximise the use of council assets and resources to reduce revenue pressures, 83%, invest in measures to improve road safety and reduce road casualties across the network, 78%, and invest in playgrounds and spaces for play to encourage active lifestyles for children and young people of 73%. The public consultation therefore supports the proposed additions for the capital programme, which will mitigate key revenue budget pressures, improve the use of technology to deliver efficiencies and innovation in services to residents, deliver new infrastructure to support growth opportunities for housing and businesses, encourages active lifestyles for children and young people, develop cultural and community spaces for residents and visitors, strengthen resilience and reduce the impact of flooding, improve road safety across the county and provide continued investment in the county's road networks. All of the proposals are included at Appendix A, along with outlined strategic business cases at Appendix E. Each business case shows how the scheme is aligned to the priorities of the Council plan. Appendix A provides details of the proposed additions to the existing capital programme that have been identified and the impact of approving these additions. 18 capital investment budget proposals totalling £58.12 million have been identified to be funded by prudential borrowing, capital receipts reserve and revenue reserves. These include £1 million investment in children's play areas, £5 million in resurfacing roads and £5 million in highway infrastructure, together with £3 million in road safety schemes. Hereford City and the market towns will benefit from a £1.2 million public realm investment in them, and £1 million will be provided for Phase 2 of the Shah Hall refurbishment. £2 million is provided for Herefordshire flood risk mitigation and £30 million for Hereford Western Bypass Phase 1. The capital strategy, which forms Appendix D of the report, has been developed in accordance with SIPFA guidelines. The purpose of the capital strategy is to give a clear and concise view of how Herefordshire Council determines its priorities for capital investment, decides how much it can afford to borrow, and sets its risk appetite. It should not duplicate other more detailed policies, procedures and plans, but instead sits above these and references them to allow those seeking more detail to know where to find it. That said, it should provide sufficient detail so that it provides an accessible single source for the reader. The strategy is included at Appendix D and in line with the guidance requires full council approval. The capital investment proposals support the county plan and the associated delivery plan. The overall aim of capital expenditure is to benefit the community through improved facilities and promoting economic growth. A specific community impact assessment, including any health and safety implications or corporate parenting responsibilities, will be included in the decision report for any new capital scheme commencing and incurring spend. Whilst this budget setting document will not detail specific environmental impacts, considerations will always be made in minimising waste and resources use in line with the Council's environmental policy. In conclusion, this capital programme addresses the wishes of the residents of Herefordshire, including their wish for a western bypass. I fully endorse this report and strongly propose that its 3 recommendations be approved by Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Leader of the Council, do you want to second now or later?
I'll second, but speak later if I may, Chairman.
Very well. Right. This is now open to debate. Are there any speakers? I've got Councillor Mason indicated. Councillor Mason, then Councillor Woodall, and then Councillor Stark. I'll take those 3 at a time. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted by the £2 million commitment in the capital budget to address flooding. Like many, I've been struck by the horrific consequences of flooding across the county in the last few years. I'm not going to draw out specific examples from my ward, as I know they are replicated elsewhere, and more importantly, this is an issue that affects us all, not just those recently flooded. Unfortunately, the changes in our climate mean we must assume this to be a problem that will only get worse in the near future, and therefore something we must address. We will all be aware that flooding is happening in new places, and new storms are causing different patterns of flooding even in each of those sites. There is no single bullet, with a variety of solutions being variously appropriate, and water doesn't always respect localised approaches, so it's vital that we address this in the whole. This commitment, along with the work already being undertaken by officers looking at our flood resilience and response capabilities, provides us with the ability to consider the right solutions at a system level, and that increased focus is extremely welcome. There is a tradition of quoting from classical rates in this council. I hope I shall be forgiven for invoking Terry Pratchett with a reminder of his famous Boots theory. Take Boots, for example. He earned $38 a month plus allowances. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50, but an affordable pair of boots, which was sort of okay for a season or 2, and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. The thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that would still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while the man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. Well, I want us to be able to intervene across the county in ways that will stand the test of time, leaving people with not just dry feet, but dry houses, safer roads, emergency and public services that can operate, school children who can go to school, and an economy resilient to flooding, not just now, but for years ahead. This budgetary commitment unlocks that work and is very welcome indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Woodall.
Thank you, Chair. In the capital strategy update, we have a proposed capital investment addition of £3 million over a period of 2 years for road safety schemes, which are most welcome. The outline strategic business case states that this bid seeks to provide investment in road safety schemes and to deliver highway improvement in the known black spots or collision sites. However, the priorities are yet to be confirmed. So, I'd like to appeal, please could we have a meaningful portion of that invested in speed reduction schemes for Herefordshire, especially in those areas where our pedestrians and drivers feel most vulnerable. such as routes to schools, stations, libraries, hospitals, leisure centres and so on, as well as fixing those traffic black spots. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stark and then Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome the addition of 1.2 million to be allocated to Market Towns and Hereford City. In the spirit of devolution, I would like that to be actually to come without strings. In the past, we've had to use Bangor Beatty when it comes to actually having the work done that the Market Towns identify on the public realm. Could I ask that when that 1.2 million is allocated, that the Market Towns and Hereford City themselves have the choice over which contractor they use when it comes to the projects they identify? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stark. Councillor Oliver and then Councillor Bartlett and then Councillor Fagan.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to question 2 or 3 items on the capital agenda. First, I note we're spending 18,990,000 on an item called waste over 24-25 and 25-26. Is this on the basis of waste not, want not? Hereford Museum and Art Gallery, a total of expenditure of 19,150,000 over 24, 25, 25, 26 and 26/7. This expenditure seems excessive and the project is taking over 2 years to progress, whereas relocation of the library and learning centre costs amount to only 3 million. And lastly, in the assessment for the Western Bypass, it takes into account the traffic pollution that is generated in the city centre, the nitrous oxide and particularly the particulate pollution. These directly affect the development of young children, and as it's pointed out, the lives of adults are shortened by inhaling this, particularly of diesel lorries going through the centre of town. So I can only support the Western Bypass on that basis, and that will improve the health of people in the centre of the town.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. There are a lot of good things in this capital budget this year. I have to say there's a lot that I like, but, and there's always a but, I can't support the amount of borrowing for the Southern Road. 30 million equates to 2.29 million a year repayments over 40 years, we're told. That's 2 generations of our residents paying back this loan in total out of their council tax bills. And many residents do tell me that Hereford needs a new road to relieve congestion. But in Leinster and the north, they're thinking about getting in from the starting gate roundabout and into the city from there. So I do not see how this short stretch of road between Rotherwas and Abergavenny, the Southern Link Road, is actually going to fully benefit the north of the county. Imagine £30 million invested across the county and the city itself could provide better value for how we get around. And we have got a new government now, and they are setting up regional bodies for growth. And this minority administration should engage with that process and draw in the investment we need for large infrastructure projects as and when it becomes available, rather than saddling the residents of this county with huge council tax bills just to pay back the loan and the interest. Thank you.
Thank you. I've then got Councillor Fagan, Councillor Thomas and Councillor Hitchener.
Thank you. Who would have thought it was the Labour government's growth agenda and unreasonable housing targets imposed on Herefordshire that would provide reckless encouragement for those who think that a Western bypass is a panacea to Herefordshire's problems? All this at a time when top climate scientists are screaming warnings of dangerous climate breakdown amid the rising pace of climate change. While I welcome the £1 million for children's play areas, I cannot support a capital budget that locks future generations into road debts for a scheme that will begin the process of inevitably sucking additional heavy traffic into Herefordshire from the Midlands and into Wales via the A49, which runs through Much Birch and Hayward End, or the A465 Abergavenny Road. All the while not sorting out the congestion problems in Hereford because it is clogged by the traffic associated with the additional 10,000 houses now being planned for the city.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Mr. Chairman, I have to actually disagree with our last two speakers. The Southern Link Road runs almost entirely through my ward, and if you don't want to be on the Belmont Road any time in the morning, because it's quite ridiculous. The reason for this road is to get more lorries into Rotherwas without going through into Hereford. This is an enormous amount of do good. The other item I want to sort of say is congratulations, at long last, Locks Garage Crossroads has been sorted out. It's killed 4 people in my lifetime, less than my lifetime. It's about time it was done, and it's good job. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hitchener, Councillor Rob Williams and Councillor James has indicated to speak. Councillor Hitchener.
Residents of Herefordshire want a road system that will enable them to get in and out of Hereford with much more ease than is the case at the present time. The evidence available at the moment is that the Southern Link Road will make no difference. The evidence is available to you all. A report prepared for the last Conservative administration in 2018-19 by consultants WSP states that the effect of the SLR on journey times on the A49 is that they will remain, and I quote, at existing levels, as will the level of delays at the A49 465 junction, the Astor roundabout. This means that traffic on the new bridge will not be affected, and logically, nor will traffic north of the river. What matters to residents is delays getting into and out of Hereford. I repeat, this report was prepared for the previous Conservative administration, of which Councillor Price was part, and with that evidence, they continue to claim that traffic in the city will reduce. The outline business plan at page 258 of the pack sets out the benefits which are supposed to result from the scheme. They rely almost entirely on a reduction of traffic. They say there will be a reduction in lost time traversing busy city centre corridors, that a reduction in traffic in the city centre will allow for more punctual bus service, and that the less traffic will also improve the active travel choices of our residents. All predicated on a reduction in traffic, for which I have not seen any evidence, despite having given the Cabinet plenty of opportunity to produce such evidence. The truth is that the SLR will do nothing to reduce traffic in the city. The Western Relief Road won't either, because it comes with a price tag of 10,000 extra homes and with an additional 15,000 cars and 25,000 people who will want to travel into Hereford to boost the local economy. Do not vote in favour of this capital budget because you think that the SLR will solve traffic problems. It won't. Find another reason, please. And what will you pick? Do you consider that it is essentially part of a bigger road scheme to build once funding is available? Is that sufficiently certain for you to support it? Or maybe you support the building of an additional 10,000 new homes on the flooding outskirts of the city. Is that a good reason? Or maybe you want to support those who want to travel through the city. That's a small number at the moment, but will increase if the bypass is built. Do you favour a road built to benefit those who do not live here? Or maybe you see some economic benefit. That may be possible, but is not proven, and at what cost in other ways, including environmental. What the city and county needs is a new bridge built as quickly as possible. Eric is its name. If this administration had continued the plans of the previous administration, this could have been completed by 2030. It would have delivered reduced congestion and a second city bridge. It would not release land for 10,000 houses, which are a questionable benefit, nor a possible detrunking of the A49, which is just a twinkle in Councillor Price's eye. I don't expect members of the administration or their Liberal Democrat partners to agree with me. They committed themselves at the last election and are left with no option but to support it, even with a lack of evidence.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Hitchener. Councillor Robert Williams.
So I can support this in its entirety. With a bit of a local flavour, I'd like to thank the 260k towards the Azerbrook flood alleviation scheme. As it obviously, impacted more greatly. Thank you.
Councillor James and then Councillor Engel.
Thank you, Chairman. What sheer hypocrisy. What sheer hypocrisy. Members against the link road who have bypasses in their areas, I just find it appalling. The previous councillor just spoke, who was, has a vested interest in not having the link road. What sheer hypocrisy. We're talking about the fact that the cost of this, the borrowing, etc. Well, why did you cancel the link road? £22 million worth of cost, which is now having to be borne by the taxpayer for nothing. For nothing. What sheer hypocrisy. We've all got bypasses in the market towns. I believe the Leominster Town Council are campaigning for a link road between Margates and the A49. What sheer hypocrisy. And yet they don't want a decent road system in Hereford. What sheer hypocrisy. I welcome the inclusion of this money in the bypass. It was us who actually proposed it. I think there were some Conservatives who opposed it at the time, but that's another matter. Another matter. But please don't talk such rubbish about care for the taxpayers when you've squandered £22 million.
Thank you, Councillor.
Page 229, move to a little less controversial. It says the council will enhance the rollout of improved access across the county towards a fully digital Herefordshire. Speaking as the member for Not Spot South, a ward which was promised by the Conservative government 15 years ago to be the pioneering rural area for superfast broadband, which still has not anywhere near happened and is still waiting. But can I ask how you're going to enhance that when your budget for this for 25-26 is precisely zero, not even enough for £2 Poundland flags to communicate by semaphore. On a second point, I'd just like to note with delight the £1 million promised for playgrounds. But I understand that is only for existing playgrounds run by the council. To the places that don't have existing playgrounds and need them, what help are you able to give? For instance, to Michael Church, that's Michael Church Eskley in my ward, that has land available and a readiness to build one, but no funds to help it along. I'd be grateful to a reply on that point, especially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got nobody else indicating, so I know. Oh, got Councillor Highfield.
Yeah, it's just a brief one. I'd like to say how much I support this overall capital expenditure, but I'd like just to make a couple of comments about the expenditure on road safety. I'm particularly pleased that that's incorporated, but contrary to what Councillor Woodall said, I don't want the focus to be uniquely on speed reduction, because that will neglect the many other reasons why traffic accidents occur. So I hope we'll take a holistic, broader view of what incorporates road safety when we're working out the schemes to spend the money. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hercombe and then Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. In the hope that I avoid any accusations of hypocrisy, I'm going to focus on local roads and not the bypass. I'd just like to voice my support for the inclusion of £5 million for highways resurfacing and £5 million for highways infrastructure in this capital budget. Investment in our roads is key. I think as ward members, we're all seeing the deteriorating state of the local network. I understand under the previous administration, there was only £1 million a year available for road resurfacing. So to put this level of investment in 1 year alone is a huge improvement. The £5 million for highways infrastructure will also allow £5 million from the current highways budget to be used for surface dressing work. Now, surface dressing work is vitally important. It costs about £4.99 per square metre to do surface dressing, and it costs over £32 per square metre to resurface a road. So the importance of investing strategically in both ends of the spectrum really matters to our highways network, so thank you for including that.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to Councillor James, as the ward member for Ledbury South, we had a bypass. I hope you don't accuse me of hypocrisy, but we no longer have a bypass, because what happens when roads get built is it creates additional access land for development, which means that then you are looking at creating and building more roads. I don't think I can support this capital budget because of the £30 million for the Southern Link Road, which will burden council taxpayers across the county who derive no benefit from the Southern Link Road to a tune of over £2 million interest payments per year starting next year for 40 plus years. I therefore hope you don't view that as hypocrisy, but as someone who had a bypass, we no longer do. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'm now going to call upon the Leader of the Council to exercise his opportunity to second this, and then I'll go back to the proposer.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points to make. We've doubled the amount of money that we're proposing to spend on road safety measures. It's an extra £250,000 for this following year. That's revenue commitment, not capital commitment. So there'll be a revenue pot of nearly £500,000 to invest on road safety measures from the revenue side of things. And then there's also this £3 million investment for capital, the need to change the capital. The road network to cope with road safety there. And with regard to the broadband issue, we have invested over a significant period of time £31 million in improving broadband, and there's still in this financial year £2.6 million worth of investment there. So I thank Councillor Engel for flagging that up, but it is a problem, we know, and there's still money there to address that matter. So I'm really happy to recommend, once again, a capital budget that's another example of the Council's determination to improve our roads, provide that vital infrastructure that we need so that we can grow our economy. It shows our commitment to improving road safety. And as Councillor Mason has so eloquently said, we really want to invest on dealing with the issues of flooding. And I know he's got his boots on that issue. So, and they're waterproof. So we recognise that the market towns and the city need extra public realm investment. And I take on board the point that Councillor Stark has made about councils making sure that they have a say in how that money gets spent. So we are making our capital programme work for us to relieve the revenue pressures. And this is a very sensible and enlightened way of making sure that our financial strengths are going to be delivering the best for Herefordshire. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Stoddard.
No further comments, Chair.
Very well. The recommendation is on page 175 and at subsections A, B and C. I propose to take all these as one vote. This will be a name vote, and we will begin with Councillor Woodall.
If councillors could indicate whether they're for, against or abstaining.
Abstain.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say Councillor Woodall. Thank you. Councillor Rob Williams. Councillor Alan Williams. Councillor Tully.
Abstain.
Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Tillett. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Swinglehurst. Councillor Stoddart. Councillor Stark. Councillor Spencer. Councillor Simmons.
Abstain.
Councillor Proctor. Councillor Price. Councillor Ivan Powell. Councillor Dan Powell. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Peabody. Councillor Owens. Councillor Oliver. Councillor O'Driscoll. Councillor Mason. Councillor Lester. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor James. Councillor Hercombe. Councillor Hitchener. Councillor Highfield. Councillor Heathfield. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Hamblin. Councillor Gennard. Councillor Gandy. Councillor Foxton. Councillor Fagan. Councillor Engel. Councillor Durkin. Councillor Dave Davis. Councillor Claire Davis. Councillor Cornthwaite. Councillor Cole. Councillor Carwardine. Councillor Bramer. Councillor Bolter. Councillor Biggs. Councillor Bartram. Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Baker. Councillor Andrews. How many against? 10. 5 against, 10 abstain. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Members of Council, the motion has been passed with 34 votes in favour, 5 against and 10 abstentions. We now move on then to agenda item 9, which is the 2005-06 budget, medium-term financial strategy, dealing with the revenue, and of course will include the setting of the council tax. These pages are referred to in your leaflets on pages 259 to 336. I will call upon the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services in a moment to move the report. I will then call on the leader if he wants to second then, and then I will be calling on all the group leaders where they will have 5 minutes to speak each, and they will be called on in the order of Councillors James, Toynbee, Harvey and Claire Davis. So I will call upon the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services, please, where you have 10 minutes to open the debate.
Thank you, Chair. The budget development process this year has been undertaken with increased transparency, and information has been shared throughout each stage as new challenges to the Council's position has arisen. I'm grateful that group leaders acknowledged this improvement to the process for 25-26 at the recent Cabinet meeting, and I believe this truly is a Council budget for the residents of Herefordshire. The provisional settlement announced by Central Government on the 18th of December confirmed the abolition of the Rural Services Delivery Grant and Services Grant, and confirmed that Herefordshire would receive 0 funds under the new Recovery Grant and £369,000 under the new Children's Social Care Prevention Grant, providing us with a net loss of £6.766 million against the previous year. I'm sorry to say that following significant lobbying of Central Government by the Rural Services Network, County Council Network, Local Government Association and the Society of County Treasurers, the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government have not provided any additional funding to rural counties, including Herefordshire. This is in spite of the Rural Services Network confirming that rural areas continue to face higher costs and reduced services compared with urban counterparts, with rural residents paying 20% more in council tax and urban areas receiving 41% more in government funding. A very stark comparison. Herefordshire Council in 25-26 has received central government grant funding totalling £29.2 million, which represents a net reduction of £3 million from the previous year. I was very pleased to see the MP for North Herefordshire, who sits on a slightly different political colour than myself, engaging in the House of Commons debate on the local government finance settlement on Wednesday evening this week. She highlighted that funding for Herefordshire Council in 25-26 is well below the national average, well below the average across comparator authorities, and not sufficient to meet the needs of its residents. However, in spite of these challenges and the government's reduction in grant funding, I am pleased to announce today that following a Herculean effort by both council officers and cabinet members, we have achieved a balanced revenue budget for 25-26 of £231.5 million. The MTFS approved last year showed a planned increase of 4% increase in council tax, and until the provisional settlement was issued on the 18th of December, this was our intention. However, due to the impact of central government's reduction in our funding, we have now had to accept a 4.99% increase in council tax for 25-26. We are aware that a number of residents may struggle with this increase, and our approval of the proposal in regards to continuing the council tax reduction scheme earlier in this meeting will, we believe, seek to address this. Looking at each of the directorate budgets will show that community wellbeing sees an increase in its base budget of 20% to £90.6 million. This increase will support growth and demand and the complexity of care. Children and young people includes additional funding for pressures in 25-26, but overall sees its base budget reduced by £473k to £59 million as a result of the continued savings in that directorate. Economy and Environment sees its base budget increased by 10% to £42.4 million, which includes our provision to match the £953,000 of rural funding from central government last year, where we'll provide £250,000 for the Lensman scheme, £250,000 for the PROW, and £453,000 for rural drainage. And also the road safety budget will increase from £200,000 to £500,000. Corporate services will see its base budget increase by 8% to £22.8 million, and central services will see its base budget reduced by 8% to £16.5 million. This leads to a proposed revenue budget of £231.5 million, an increase of 9% on the 2024-25 base budget. And this will be funded by council tax at £146.451 million, or 63%, business rates at £47.567 million, or 20.5%, social care support grant at £20.3 million, or 9%, extended producer responsibility grant at £3.5 million, or 1.5%, and the other smaller grants making up the remaining £13.9 million, or 6%. However, each directorate faces a number of unfunded pressures which we have factored into their base budgets for this year. These include pay awards, which represent an impact of the estimated pay award for 25-26 on staffing expenditure across each directorate. National Insurance direct impact represents the direct impact of increases in the rate and thresholds for employers' national insurance on the council's pay bill. This will be funded by government at a cost of £1.6 million, £146k higher than expected. Inflation represents the impact of inflation across contractual and non-contractual commitments in 2025-26. And finally, demand reflects additional demand for services based on most recent activity, data and costs. This pressure includes adjustments to reflect trend analysis and planned transformation activity into each service area. The final settlement from government to confirm our allocation for 25-26 was announced on Monday this week, 3 February. As the provision for the direct national insurance costs is now 146k more than we expected, we will use that to make additional provision to support development of the local plan and to make a transfer to the Financial Resilience Reserve to mitigate the potential unfavourable outcome of the Fair Funding Review planned in 2025. The medium-term financial strategy is the Council's key financial planning document and sets out the Council's budget for 25-26 and the financial plan for the next 3 years out to 2028-29. Table 1 shows the cumulative funding gap of £4.198 million over the medium-term financial period. This gap is considered manageable and will be resolved in future years through continued transformation. Whilst there are significant challenges ahead, this MTFS ensures that the Council's finances are aligned to its strategic priorities with a clear focus on transformation to ensure the financial stability of the Council and the services that it delivers. The Treasury Management Strategy at Appendix D has been prepared to comply with all statutory guidance on local government investments. The borrowing strategy is that the Council borrows to fund capital expenditure, with borrowing driven by the requirements of the approved capital investment budget. The objective of the borrowing strategy is to manage the risk of current and future potential debt. The current loan debt of £118.116 million is detailed at Annex A. The objective of the investment strategy is to ensure prudence is applied and risks are managed when the Council holds surplus funds, that's income received in advance of expenditure. As at the 31st of October 2024, the Council has £64.1 million of investments spread across banks, other local authorities and money market funds. The current investment portfolio is detailed at Annex A. As part of our business as usual, we have carried out a review of interest receivable earned in the financial years from 2020-21 to 23-24. This has highlighted the variability in levels of income from this source. In 2020-21, an interest receivable budget of £200,000 was approved in the revenue budget. However, the actual interest earned was £165,000, £35,000 less than the budgeted amount. In the current 24-25 financial year, interest receivable of £1.6 million has been achieved to date against a planned budget of £0.5 million and as reported in the Q2 24-25 budget report. A prudent estimate of £0.6 million is assumed as part of the budget setting for 25-26, and income achieved above this budgeted value will be reported once the flow of economic benefit to the Council is probable, that is, at the end of each quarter, as in previous years, and in line with accounting principles. Finally, the earmarked reserves at Appendix E show that our forecast reserves as at 31 March 2025 will be £75.1 million. As this administration has stated on numerous occasions, we will embrace openness and transparency in all that we do. This year, unlike previous years, includes in Appendix 1 the rationale for each of the earmarked reserves, together with the context of why the level is maintained at that level. Earmarked reserves represent amounts set aside for future expenditure to support specific corporate priorities or for general contingencies and reserves, and general cash flow management. The general fund balance is not allocated or earmarked for a specific purpose, but represents a strategic reserve to be used in the event of a major incident or emergency. It is considered prudent to maintain a level of reserve balances commensurate with risk, and an assessment to confirm the adequacy and robustness of balances is undertaken annually by the Section 151 officer as part of the budget setting process. In conclusion, and as a result of the robust management of the revenue budget and responsible stewardship of the Council's financial resources, Herefordshire Council is in a strong and resilient position to respond to and withstand future financial pressures. This strong financial position is evidenced through a balanced budget for 25-26, adequate reserves to manage financial risks and respond to emerging pressures, a positive cash flow and high levels of liquidity, a strong balance sheet with low levels of borrowing relative to the Council's asset base, an unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements for 23-24, and of note, Herefordshire Council was the only council to achieve this budgeted statutory deadline, and finally, external assurance in respect of the Council's financial sustainability is confirmed in the Auditor's Annual Report for 23-24 with no significant weaknesses identified. I have no hesitation in recommending this draft budget and recommend that Council approve all 8 recommendations and the proposal for allocation of additional funding.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart. I've allowed you some extra time because of the significance of content of your report. He did tell me it was going to be 9 minutes 50 seconds, but there we are. But no, thank you for that. Now then, the Leader of the Council, do you want to second now or speak now or later?
I'll second, but I reserve the right to speak at the end, please.
Very well. I will now turn to the group leaders, and I will begin with Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I shall be nearer the 50 seconds than the 9 minutes 50 seconds. Just to say that we support this particular, and I hope members across the political spectrum will support this particular budget. It's followed, I think, more consultation and discussions and debate prior to this meeting that I can recall in recent times. The only sour note I'll add is in confirming the fact that, in actually stating the fact that we've lost nearly £7 million in the Rural Services Grant, which follows on the previous government's cut of nearly £60 million reduced over the last 8 years in central government grant. So it's even worse than, the position is cumulative and far worse than we think. But fortunately, we're in a better position, and over years we've managed our affairs slightly better than some councils, perhaps, and perhaps we've been lucky. I don't know, but we're in a better position than many councils are joining us, and let alone all over the country. So, on balance, I think my political group, the Liberal Democrats, will support this agenda because this level of council tax, we're heading to difficult times with a difficult man in the White House, and who knows what lies ahead as far as the economy of the country and the world is concerned, and we need to be very, very careful. And so I support the level of council tax. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Toynbee.
Thank you. Yes, my thanks to all who've worked so hard on this budget. Green councillors have been actively involved throughout its journey, and the responsiveness of our Chief Financial Officer and the general openness of the team and the consultation has been much appreciated. We know that putting together what's before us today is a huge task, and once again it's been made more challenging than necessary by the final settlement from government appearing just a few days ago. But it's good news that we are finally going to start getting multi-year settlements from the government. After 14 years of savage cuts to local councils, some of us hoped that last year's general election would mark the end of austerity, but very disappointingly, it seems Labour are as big fans of austerity as the Conservatives, and it's the people of Herefordshire who are paying the price. So we continue to delete vacant council posts and make cuts under the banner of transformation, and this is all very worrying. As far as council tax is concerned, the administration tells us that they had planned to raise it by 3.99%, but had to up that to 4.99% because of losing the Rural Services Grant. These two things don't actually correlate, especially given the windfall of the Extended Producer Responsibility Grant. However, given that the government based what they call our spending power on an assumption of council tax going up by the maximum, we completely understand that that is why that's what Cabinet is recommending to us today. The Cabinet tells us that this is a council budget, not a political budget. Well, budgets are political. They set out a council's priorities, and that's what politics is about. What we will or won't spend public money on and how to raise that money. We are all politicians with different values. Greens don't oppose for the sake of it. When we agree with decisions, it's not despite our politics, it's because of our politics, which is all about finding common ground and working for the common good with all our colleagues. As far as the revenue budget is concerned, demand for our services increases, and we all know we have to do more and more with less and less. Throughout the year, not just at budget time, we are all scrutinising decisions, insisting on value for money, defending services, and pressurising government to give Herefordshire the resources we need. It's a great relief that finally Herefordshire has an MP who is heeding that cry and standing up for us in Herefordshire. In particular, as Councillor Stoddart mentioned, trying to make government understand the particular challenges of rural counties And it's great to hear Councillor Stoddart's support for Ellie Chans. As far as the capital budget is concerned, I wanted to find investments to approve. We all did, because we all want the right plans for Herefordshire, and we welcome many of these projects, from housing to play equipment, from tackling flooding to acquiring our own minibuses. As we have seen right at the bottom of the appendix of outlined strategic business cases, right at the bottom of the 41-page appendix, on page 40, is by far the most expensive plan, and the huge proposal, as has already been mentioned, to borrow tens of millions of pounds to build a short stretch of road linking the A465 to the A49. We are told in that report that this will remove some of the blockers associated with decisions to not adopt sustainable modes of transport for short journeys. Are these blockers practical or political? As was mentioned in the debate, we must look at the evidence. People want clean air, safe streets, and less congestion. We say our priority is our most vulnerable members of society, but these residents are very often those without their private vehicles. I believe there are better ways of spending residents' money, and more tarmac should be the last resort, not the first. And the benefits of big money infrastructure projects tend not to trickle down to those who most need help to get around. I don't believe it's responsible to take out huge loans that council taxpayers will be repaying for decades. So I was not able to support that particular plan, to put us deeply into debt for something that will not enhance quality of life. As far as this item is concerned, I accept the rationale of the recommendation for the revenue budget and the Treasury management. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Independents for Herefordshire welcome that the current minority Conservative administration, I thought I'd get that in early, is able to bring a balanced budget to this meeting. We hope that the leader will be gracious in recognising that this is the result of sound and careful management of the county's affairs over a succession of administrations, and that all councillors and our many officers during that time have played their part in keeping the council on a sound financial footing. We share the leader's frustration at the peremptory and capricious cancelling of over 7 million of rural services grants, and we are concerned that the lobbying of the new Labour government to recover the money has so far received a stiff ignoring. We welcome that this year's 11 million structural reset of the budget for Children's Directorate appears to be holding, and support the continuation of the savings targeted for delivery in the coming year. However, we are surprised that the administration rates the risk presented by the operation of the Directorate only as low, especially given the recent withdrawing Commissioner's comments on the pace at which it has been possible to achieve progress and the breadth and scale of the task still ahead. On the other hand, we welcome the recognition that the high risk presented by the rapidly building pressures in the Community Wellbeing Directorate. We urge the administration to hasten the pace at which strategic investments are being delivered to transform services and to increase the availability of affordable residential care placements in the county. We also welcome the work being done to increase the pace at which affordable housing more generally is brought forward, but urge all involved to be more innovative, creative and collaborative in the ways in which this is achieved. While social services consume more than 2/3 of the Council's available budget, it is the universal services delivered out of the Economy and Environment Directorate which most of us encounter on a daily basis. We urge this Directorate to pick up the pace of both the delivery of its transformation initiatives and the development of new and existing income streams. We also urge the Directorate to ensure that the progress that's been made over the last 6 years in bringing rigorous and more business-like approach to the management of publicly owned property is not lost with the return of this cost centre to the Directorate. Huge contracts for the delivery of waste, public realm and highway maintenance services are due to be retendered out of this Directorate in the coming year. Timescales are tight and costs are stratospheric. The consequences of making poor choices about our partners or failing to have the in-house capacity and capability to be an intelligent customer in operating these contracts will impact on every home and business in the county. We hope that the appropriate level of funding and officer time is being given to these important matters in how the budget for this directorate is prioritised for delivery. But it's not possible for members here today to be assured of the way in which the budget is going to be spent and that it aligns to the priorities of residents and the needs and future interests of the county, because, contrary to promises made, the 25-26 delivery plan has not been provided to this budget-setting council meeting. Independents for Herefordshire urge the leader to get his eye back on this important ball and to publish the delivery plan for the coming year as a matter of urgency. We recognise the need for the leader to propose making the maximum allowable uplift in council tax again this year. However, it's worrying that he's chosen not to do more to offset the damaging impact of this by increasing his provision of targeted discretionary support to less well-off households. We challenge the leader to state clearly whether he believes his administration is doing sufficient to support hard-up households. Equally, we believe that the failure to increase funding to develop investment business cases will continue to place Herefordshire at a disadvantage when short notice calls for shovel-ready projects are issued again by government. By the end of March, interest received on the Council's cash deposits and investments over the last 3 years will have provided over £7 million of unbudgeted funding. This currently invisible windfall income stream would seem the obvious source of funding for both these important missing provisions. However, since my group's budget amendment to shine some cleansing sunlight upon the way in which this money is to be used has been refused, and the practice of keeping these funds tucked away in the administration's back pocket seems sadly set to continue. As ever, the devil of this budget will be in the detail of its delivery, and Independents for Herefordshire are ready to play our part in scrutiny and governance in the coming year.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. The True Independents have been fully engaged with both the capital and revenue budget consultation and felt listened to by the administration. We acknowledge that the really good work done by Councillor Stoddart and Rachel Sanders and her team in delivering a balanced budget, particularly given the government's settlement. We support the proposal to approve the 2025-26 revenue budget, medium-term financial strategy, and the Treasury management strategy and supporting recommendations. As a council, there are things we must do in line with our strategy duties. These are things we have to do, and there are things we would like to do, and there are things that have to be done. This, we feel, is a balanced budget, which will deliver against those 3 principles for the residents of Herefordshire. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open the matter to a wider debate. I have Councillor Kenyon, Councillor Alan Williams. Look out, way out now. I've got Councillor Stark, Councillor Gandy, and I'll just regroup there because that's enough. So, Councillor Kenyon, if you'd like to start.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm an independent in Hereford. Thank God I'm not an independent for Herefordshire, because you had your turn a couple of years ago and it was awful. But I would like to say that I on social media, no one likes paying more. And I went on social media, taking on some of the people on social media about the budget. And I said, I'm going to look into this budget. And I did. I went and met with Peter. And I will say, I've been doing this a long time. Some people may think too long. This is the best budget I've ever looked at. And it really feels like there's a grown-up in charge. And that's my feeling. So I absolutely will be supporting this budget. However, I've just got one question. Are there any underspends within any of the council directorates that kind of roll over? That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. I'm sure that will be picked up. So I've got Councillor Alan Williams, then Councillor Stark, then Councillor Gandy, then Councillor Highfield.
Thank you, Chair. I want to congratulate Councillor Peter Stoddart and the team that compiled this budget. When you take into account the financial cuts of support that have been inflicted on us, again, it's nothing short of a masterpiece. Perhaps Rachel from accounts could take a lesson. Yes, we like other areas, rural areas, have been kicked in the teeth by a government that can only be described as inept and incompetent. I'm delighted that in this budget there's extra money allocated for highways and social care. Also, I picked up for players where I like to play, so well done. I totally endorse this budget and respectfully urge all councillors present to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stark.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'd like to congratulate everyone that was involved in this budget, and particularly the S151 officer. I think the way she's engaged with us, both members, scrutiny and groups, is exemplary. Well done. It wouldn't be a budget debate if I didn't raise the economy and environment allocation, would it, Chair? Now, on this occasion, I'm looking at the gross budget here, and I would like to just point members to Appendix C. This directorate has had a transfer of nearly 7 million in reserves, which has allowed the net budget to be pushed down to 42 million. Now, I accept there's a number of variables when you look at gross budget and you look at the net budget, and obviously some of the spend at the gross level may not necessarily be repeated next year. But I am concerned that with a 7 million transfer of reserves, which is nearly 16 to 17% addition to the net budget, if it wasn't available, runs a risk, if that's not repeated next year, that we could see another problem in the allocation of the revenue budget to economy and environment. And as we all know, that's the area where most of our residents receive any sort of service from us. So I would like, as part of the 26-27 budget, Chair, to ask the Executive to commission a piece of work to look at the options for putting the economy and environment revenue allocation on a sounder and more robust footing going forwards. And I would hope that they would respond positively to that, because I'm concerned that every year I'm having to raise issues and risks connected with the economy and environment allocation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gandy, and then Councillor Highfield, and then Councillor Proctor.
Thank you, Chairman. I have participated in 34 annual budget setting meetings. I don't want a medal for that, but I have. And I have to say that this is the proudest I have ever been under any administration, including my own administration previously, that I've ever come across. I'm absolutely delighted. There are things both in the capital budget and the revenue budget that will support the most vulnerable of our residents, and that is so important to me and to many of us in this room. There is going to be tarmac on the roads, which will help not just the market towns and the city, but the very rural areas who have no alternative but to use the roads because they have no public transport. So I absolutely support this, and I'm so proud to be a member of a minority administration that has put this budget together today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Highfield.
Yes, this is only my second budget meeting, so my endorsement doesn't carry quite the weight of Councillor Gandy's. But for what it's worth, I'm delighted with what Councillor Stoddart and the team, the finance team in the council, have put together. One particular point I would like to note and to thank, this continued contribution to the parish councils for things like the Lengthsman scheme, drainage, public rights of way. It isn't just a practical benefit to get things done. It is an object lesson in democracy that puts the choices and the pressure in the hands of the very local people who will benefit or not based on the decisions that are made for those areas. So thank you very much indeed for the continuation of that funding. Thank you.
Thank you. The list of speakers I've got is Councillor Proctor, Councillor Hitchener, Councillor Fagan, Councillor Oliver, and then Councillor Simmons. Councillor Proctor.
I just want to pick up on Councillor Stark's point. I think I can find him a few £1 million of revenue, which is the money that we pay to keep people in temporary accommodation when they're made homeless. And that's a direct result of there not being enough houses for the people who live in this county. And I listened with a very depressed air to the debate on the capital budget, where building more houses seemed to be presented by a lot of members as a bad thing. If we had enough houses for the people who live here, we wouldn't have to put people in temporary accommodation. People who don't end up in temporary accommodation wouldn't feel unsettled, and Councillor Stark could have some more money for his E&E.
Thank you. Councillor Hitchener.
Thank you, Chairman. I will support this budget. The administration that I headed had considerable challenges to draw up a balanced budget, and so I have empathy for those who have worked on this one. In our administration, we had to make difficult decisions about where to cut back. It is not evident to me from the papers that such decisions have had to be made this time. I am told this is more a case of going slower in some areas rather than cuts. This is welcomed. As Chair of the Audit and Governance Committee, I thought it appropriate to comment and focus on the risks to the budget identified in this paper. The paper assesses the budget risk to the children's area as low. After so many years of serving children in our care so poorly, it is reassuring that officers and the Cabinet consider the budget risk is low. I'm personally pleased that we now have so many more permanent social workers. This is not only a financial saving, but also a key to providing better care through continuity of contact. I've long wondered why it was that such an attractive county as ours has struggled with recruitment. Well done to officers for creating an environment where people are keen to come to Herefordshire to work. We hope they will choose to live here too. As councillors, we must not be complacent and need to be watchful to ensure that the needs of children in our care continue to be met. The paper assesses the budget risk for adult care as high risk. This is clearly going to be an area of focus. For many years, this directorate recorded savings, which thankfully compensated for overspending in children's. If we are not to see the costs accelerating as predicted nationally, we need initiatives such as Talk Community, Home First and the Predict and Prevent Service to have an increasing impact to enable adults, and not just the elderly, to live fulfilled lives for as long as possible. The county is attracted to retirees, and my concern, and that of many, is that many of the 27,000 houses will be occupied by retirees, adding to the burden of this service. And I take Councillor Proctor's point that we do need houses for local people, but there seems to be a tendency we are so attractive as a place for people to retire to. So I think this is a risk which should be noted. Key elements are the need to spend to save and to be rigorous in accounting for such approach. We can't just spend without making sure the savings are delivered. And it's not just on buildings, but systems and training. The budget is light on the budget risk to us as a county caused by known central government policy, but let alone the unknown. I think in particular of the demand for more housing, which is required, but which needs to be appropriate, or the reduction in the rural services grant and the pressure being put on family farms. The new government is keen on economic growth. Can Herefordshire satisfy the demands of government in the way the government requires? Ours is a resourceful county, which has plenty of entrepreneurs. There are many thriving businesses that have started in this county and stay here, but I cannot see that we can attract the large employers and types of business that will drive the growth which the government requires. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fagan, then Councillor Oliver.
Thank you. I'd like to thank those who've been involved in pulling this budget together, although it is still going to come as a blow to those residents of Herefordshire who find a 4.99% increase in their council tax, and it is such a shame that that cannot be avoided. The loss of the rural services grant has a significant impact on our rural communities in Herefordshire, who are increasingly affected by the shocking state of our rural roads, and I will throw in Lasket Lane, Glasshouse Lane, Trollway. I welcome the investment in our existing roads and look forward to hearing when residents in my ward who are locked into car use with roads that are falling apart can see some benefits from their council tax. Whilst I understand the need to use the additional 3.5 million from the extended producer responsibility levy to fill the funding hole created by the loss of the rural services grant, I'm dismayed that we cannot use any of this funding this financial year to develop a strategy to deal with the pernicious and growing problem of litter on our county roads. We simply cannot rely on our wonderful army of litter pickers and the purple bags provided by Balfour Beatty to sort this problem out. I've been promised by members of the Cabinet that moving forward over this year we can look at a strategy to address the issue of litter and look forward to working towards a scheme that is a proactive proactively addresses the issue of roadside litter and targets the source of our litter problems, in particular the courier vans who throw their bags of rubbish out on our ailing rural roads, and those louts who treat our A roads as bins, those who use our rural lay-bys as toilets, spoiling and soiling our beautiful county. This is not just a case of needing to teach children not to drop litter. We need to really grasp the nettle on litter and start addressing the source of the problem to keep our beautiful Herefordshire beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I've got Councillor Oliver, then Councillor Simmons, Councillor Bartlett, and then Councillor Robert Williams. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we all appreciate that the social services and children's services are going to take up the majority of the money we have. I think we've done well to contain that and have sufficient to make a contribution across the county on other matters. One point, I note there's still 400 children in care. Is that a number that's likely to increase or decrease? And the council is committed to doing 250 units of affordable housing. It's pledged to do that per year. I don't see any expenditure relating to that pledge.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add to the chorus of thanks and support to the officer and the team and Councillor Stoddart for the balanced budget. There are some excellent things, as people have said in there. I would just like to urge a note of caution for what will come next as a result of the approval of the 30 million of borrowing for the road project. I do wonder where on earth we're going to find the money to do the interest payments. What are we going to cut further when we're already cut to the bone and we're not being supported by our national government with our delivery of rural services? As Councillor James said, we need to prudence. And that is not what we've done as a result of this. And in regard to Councillor Proctor's comments, I fully support housing for local people, particularly social housing. Imagine what that £30 million invested, rather than in the road, in building social housing could have achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody who's put in so much work on this budget. I agree, Councillor Proctor. I'm fully for the right houses in the right place for our residents that are affordable. I'd just like to draw attention to the fact that we have approved the implementation of council tax premiums on second homes and empty homes. What I would actually like to see going forward is some specific link between that money that's coming in, it's estimated income of 3.1 million, and actually bringing back onto the market or into our own social housing schemes those empty properties. Before we start building new properties in the county, we need to address this problem. We need to get these empty properties back into use so that our residents have somewhere to live that is safe, affordable, and then they can get on with growing their lives. So at some point, I would really like to see where we can make a specific link between income from empty properties and maximising the return of empty properties to the people of Herefordshire so they've got somewhere to live. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, I've got Councillor Rob Williams before I turn to the second term proposer. Is anybody else? Right. I've got two more speakers. I knew it was tempting fate. But no, that's fine. that was Councillor Hercombe. Anyone else? Just Councillor Hercombe. I thought Councillor Bolter and Councillor Bolter. That's it then. Yeah, I've got him. So Councillor Rob Williams, Councillor Hercombe, Councillor Bolter, and then I will wind the debate up and move to the seconder and proposer. Okay? Councillor Rob Williams.
Thank you to all the officers, councillors and the process for a well-delivered budget. I just want to take us virtually for a moment to Bradford and the council there, where they submitted an on their tax this year, an increase of 14.99% to central government, which was denied, but it's been given 10%. So therefore, I'd like to thank this administration and the historic Conservative administrations for its budgetary prudence that we don't find ourselves in this place. We, as rural Herefordshire, do our best with what little we are given, despite the national disregard from central Labour government. Thank you.
Councillor Hercombe.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to echo the congratulations for Councillor Stoddart and the team for all the hard work they've put in. You don't have to go very far to see the impact of mismanagement of public finances. If you look at Birmingham, obviously they've gone up by 17% in the last 2 years, and any failure to set a balanced budget could very easily have seen Herefordshire go down a similar path in future years. So thank you for your hard effort, guys. I also like to thank them for including nearly £1 million for parish councils, as Councillor Highfield's raised. The Lentman scheme is hugely important in my ward and my parishes, sorry. And it's put to very good use in terms of drainage work and local road schemes that otherwise would be neglected or not done. So thank you for continuing that funding. I've listened to a lot of councillors mention they're concerned about the borrowing cost of the Southern Link Road or Phase 1 of the bypass. There's a simple solution. This administration's asked the government to provide that funding for us. Those councillors in other parties could ask their MP to do the same. Instead of writing to the government asking them not to give us money, she could actually write to the government in support of that project and ask for that 40 million to be given to us to deliver the project as part of the Network North funding that was promised.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Bolter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, good work by all people all round, I think, not just Councillor Stoddart, who I think he's put a lot of work in, but I think everybody's contributed, group leaders and consultation we've had. It's been a good area. I've only got one area I'd like to pick up on, and this is to do with interest on the money we have on deposit. It was mentioned earlier by a couple of people that we were, in 2021, we estimated 200k and we only got 165k. Now, this year, the prediction is 1.6 million of money that we're going to get for our deposits. When we were in administration before, we used to ring fence money from reserves for the most vulnerable in the community. Councillor Gandy has said supporting vulnerable people is a priority, which it is, and I appreciate that. And we do a lot for a lot of people, but there are people who fall through the cracks. This year we're saying we're going to get 600,000. Now, where is that 600,000 going to go? What are we going to do with that? That is my question. It's a question really to put out to the floor. But having said that, looking at the Treasury reports that we have, with the money that we've got on deposit at the moment, and taking the Treasury forecasts of the decline in interest rates going forward for the next 2 years, unless we're raiding our deposits for any reason, we should be achieving a lot more than £600,000. And if we do, where is that money going to go to? We tried to put a budget amendment through so we could look at that specific area, but we were told by the S151 officer that we could not do that. It wasn't possible. So now I'm just highlighting this for members, because in the room now, from where we are currently, there are over 30 members who may not be aware of that situation from the previous administration because they are new or returning members. So I would like a bit more information or scrutiny to get hold of where the money that we're going to get from our deposits is going to go and be spent. And I would agree with Councillor Gandy, it needs to be on the most vulnerable, because there will be people who don't, for whatever reason, fall through the cracks. They end up in a situation of no fault of their own, and they need help, and take Councillor Proctor's point on board as well. They end up in care or in homes, and we're costing us money to put them there. We need to have money to help those people so they don't end up there. So please, can we look at that estimation and see what we're going to do with that money? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now call upon the Leader of the Council to second the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to group leaders and all councillors that have contributed to the debate and the discussion, not just today, but of course in the preceding months. And we've had that exchange of views and had detailed discussions, and everyone in this room has been part of that process, and I would like to thank them. I would also like to thank Rachel Sanders, our 151 officer, and the whole team for the comprehensive work that they've done, not only in preparation for the budget, but being focused and providing rigour on ensuring that the budget setting process and the consultation process has been effective. There's been robust challenge on all fronts to ensure that all spending is necessary. That has taken a lot of work behind the scenes, and so thank you to the team, with a special thank you to Rachel Sanders for her leadership with the finances. Lastly, I would love to thank Councillor Stoddart for a huge amount of effort on your part with the budget process. You've been very patient, persistent, and done a great job in taking this council through the process. Good financial management over the long term has never really been Herefordshire Council's issue, and I pay tribute to all councillors, no matter what their political persuasion, for their hard work in managing the finances. What has increased, though, is strength in governance. And what has not helped this council financially is handing back government grants to build roads and the cost of the cancellation of them. The medium-term financial strategy explains fully how the council will cope with the responsibility of funding each of its capital programmes. However, I note with interest Councillor Hercombe's point about government funding. We've been promised government funding for road schemes in the past, and we look to the new government to honour that proposal, because that is the only way we will get the necessary infrastructure we need to grow this county. With regard to extra income in interest, I note the comments that have been made. All of the interest in the extra monies that we get is visible in the budget monitoring. We have already put in a contingency in a budget resilience reserve to address any of the hardships and extra budgetary pressures that looking after vulnerable people will mean for the budget, which is a very good indication of how we've been very responsible with allocating our resources. So setting a budget is one of the most important tasks that a council can perform. Ensuring financial stability is absolutely crucial to deliver those day-to-day services, and as well to lead our way to reaching our collective aspirations. So to provide a balanced budget whilst other councils are facing huge challenges, and propose a budget that gives us the scope to invest in Herefordshire on so many fronts is good news for Herefordshire. This is despite the fact that the government has not made it easy for us in many ways. The removal of the Rural Services Grant sends a clear message that this government refuses to focus on the challenges that large rural councils face. This government claimed that county councils' spending power would go up by 6%, when we know that the government support only means that a 2.4% increase for Herefordshire. Given that we have rural deprivation and we also have areas of urban deprivation, it is clear that this government has failed to assist a well-run council. We've managed to balance the budget, secure the services, and we're prepared to invest in our roads and other key assets. But in order to do this, we've had to go to 4.99%. It does, however, leave the overriding situation that we are setting a budget on financial foundations that are stable, and it is a dedication to delivering the best for Herefordshire. In this way, it's clearly showing that we've got a plan for this council. The only thing that's in my mind, though, which is the begging question, is that because we've done so well in balancing the budget, and because we're sustainable and responsible, it is always there in my mind that we would have done far better had we have got the fairer funding that this council and this county deserves. But all of that said, and all of the points that have been made, I still think this is a budget that we should all support as councillors, and please, I urge you to vote in favour of this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I will now return to the Cabinet Member for Finance, Councillor Stollard, to end the debate.
Thank you, Chair. I have no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well. So the recommendations are on pages 259 to 60, subpoints A to H. I'm going to take them all as a one vote. It will be a name vote, and we will return to begin with Councillor Andrews.
Again, if members could indicate whether they're for, against or abstaining. Councillor Andrews. Councillor Baker. Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Bartram. Councillor Biggs. Councillor Bolter. Councillor Bramer. Councillor Carwardine. Councillor Cole. Councillor Cornthwaite. Councillor Claire Davis. Councillor Dave Davis. Councillor Durkin. Councillor Engel. Councillor Fagan. Councillor Foxton. Councillor Gandhi. Councillor Jennard. Councillor Hamblin. Councillor Harvey. Councillor Heathfield. Councillor Highfield. Councillor Hitchner. Councillor Hercombe. Councillor James. Councillor Kenyon. Councillor Lester. Councillor Mason. Councillor O'Driscoll. Councillor Oliver. Councillor Owens. Councillor Peabody. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Dan Powell. Councillor Ivan Powell. Councillor Price. Councillor Price. Councillor Proctor. Councillor Simmons. Councillor Spencer. Councillor Stark. Councillor Stoddart. Councillor Swinglehurst. Councillor Thomas. Councillor Tillett. Councillor Toynbee. Councillor Tully. Councillor Alan Williams. Councillor Rob Williams. Councillor Woodall.
Yes, I just had one abstention and one against.
Councillors, the recommendation has been approved by 48 votes with 1 against. Can I take this opportunity to thank all of you for your contributions during that debate? Setting the budget and, of course, setting the council tax is one of the most onerous responsibilities that we have as elected members, and it's not always easy, particularly at this particular time, to explain to your residents that you have sat here and voted for a 4.99% increase, because there are not always the opportunity to explain the reasonings behind it. But I recognise that the mature decision and responsibility that you have to take. Certainly, from my point of view, and I can speak now after the debate, it was most disappointing from the Rural Services Network that that money was taken from us without any consultation, and we must work very hard. The government is going to move to multi-year settlements, but with a new criteria, and we need to watch the makeup of that criteria very, very closely and lobby hard. Can I finally, on all your behalf, ask for thanks to be sent, well, obviously our 1-5 officer is with her, but to all her team, for the work that they have done. I think members have been consistent across the piece about the openness, transparency and good work that was done this year, and I think that should be shared with that team. And can I particularly thank also our Cabinet Member for the work that he has done towards this. I am particularly conscious that 2 months ago he underwent a very serious operation, and I think it shows a great dedication and diligence to duty. Congratulations, Peter. I'm in your hands. Do you want a quick comfort break, or do you want to just go quickly through the remainder of the... Crack on? Crack on. Very well. We will now move on to agenda item 10, which is the pay policy statement, pages 337 to 350. This is a statutory responsibility of all public authorities to report this information, and I will call upon the leader of the council, who is chair of the employment panel, to propose.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Council is required to agree and publish a pay policy statement each year. So the Employment Panel has met to consider this pay policy statement, and the recommendation is before you for approval. So I now move.
Thank you. And I call upon the Vice Chair, Councillor Toynbee, to second.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to second this recommendation. I've just got a couple of remarks. Shall I make them now or after?
No, I should make them now, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, just very briefly, two things. Firstly, I encourage colleagues to keep an eye on the work of the Employment Panel, which is work done on behalf of all of you and can be found on the Council website. For example, at the last meeting we discussed high-cost interim posts, the fact that they're not covered by the same recording regulations as directly employed staff, and we asked for greater political scrutiny of them. So members might be interested in that. And secondly, as elected representatives, we're all involved with a very wide range of partners around the county, and this gives us a unique opportunity to keep an eye on their pay policies, their pay gap statements, etc., especially when they're agencies that we outsource work to. So whether from the point of view of equality, value for money, or other issues, we're in a position where we're able to ask for more transparency and accountability from these organisations on behalf of the people who elect us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this item? In which case I will move straight to a free vote, not named. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No, that's carried unanimously. Let's move on then to agenda item 11, where we confirm the full council meetings dates. The next council meeting being the 7th of March, and there are the dates before you up until the 22nd of May 2026. I will move those dates. Are you all in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No, so that is carried. It only remains for me to say that our next meeting will be on the 7th of March at 10 o'clock. Finally, can I draw your attention that during the meeting an email has been dropped into our boxes about the Member Development Working Group and asking us to complete a short survey of the current, future and learning and development opportunities for all councillors. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes for you to actually do the work. It would be greatly appreciated because this will enhance, of course, the induction and continuous member development of elected members. So if you could do with that. Other than that, I will now declare the meeting closed.